Okay, let's jump right into this. Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to completely flip the script on how you think about getting a deal done. A lot of people treat negotiation like a trip to a dusty flea market, just pure, stressful haggling, where one person wins and the other loses. But today, we are transforming that basic haggling mindset into strategic, high-level partnership building. We're looking at a very specific playbook, distilling 7 core tactics that top-tier CEOs use to master the art of the deal.
So let me ask you this. Ever wonder why some CEOs always seem to walk away with the absolute best deal? Well, I'll tell you a secret. It's not because they're the loudest in the room, and it's definitely not because they just aggressively pound their fists on the table until they get their way. What's really fascinating here is that the most successful leaders view negotiation as a structured life cycle. It's this beautifully orchestrated story with a beginning, middle, and end, rather than just acting tough in a conference room for an hour.
And that brings us to a really crucial definition. What exactly is a master negotiator? Simply put, it's a strategic leader who focuses on long-term value, shared goals, and mutual growth, rather than just winning today's little argument. Think about it. If you only care about squeezing the absolute last penny out of someone today, you might win the battle, sure, but you are definitely going to lose the war. True masters think way beyond the ink drying on the current contract. They're basically architects of future opportunities.
To get you to that master level, here is our roadmap for today. 1. Setting the stage. 2. Making your first move. 3. Navigating friction and time. 4. Uncovering true motivations. 5. Winning the long game. And finally, 6. Summary and next steps. Let's get into it.
Section 1. Setting the stage. Think about this as controlling the environment before a single number or term is even whispered. You wouldn't jump into a car for a massive cross-country trip with a colleague without agreeing on a destination first, right? That perfectly illustrates our first major tactic, controlling the agenda. If you aren't driving the conversation, somebody else is. If you outline the agenda up front for, say, a massive software renewal, the very moment the vendor starts drifting into irrelevant upselling, you can cleanly redirect them. You literally just say, hey, let's table that for later and get back to our core objective. It totally keeps the car from driving in circles. Once that agenda is locked in, you deploy another brilliant tactic, clarifying priorities early. Don't sit there guessing what the other side wants. Instead, just ask this incredibly simple yet powerful question. What's the most important outcome for you? Just let them tell you. Maybe you think they care strictly about price, but it turns out they actually care way more about the delivery timeline. Uncovering that shared common ground right at the starting line saves so much wasted time arguing over things that, frankly, don't matter to either of you.
Section 2. Making your first move.
Now that the pleasantries are out of the way, your absolute go-to tactic is this. Set the anchor first. The very first offer completely frames the rest of the conversation. Think about pricing a house in a neighborhood. If a house is listed at $1 million, every single other thing is judged against that $1 million mark, whether the house is actually worth it or not. When you anchor the discussion with a number or a term that heavily favors you, while obviously leaving a little room for flexibility, you take absolute control of the narrative. You get to set the neighborhood benchmark. But here is where you really separate the amateurs from the true pros. Notice the amateur move. Single ultimatums make people feel totally trapped. Human beings fundamentally hate feeling backed into a corner. The CEO move, on the other hand, is to present options, not ultimatums. Give them 2 or 3 options that all work perfectly fine for you. It's exactly like handing someone a restaurant menu. They get to pick their meal so they feel completely in control, but guess what? You pick the restaurant. The real secret sauce here is making your preferred option the most subtly attractive one. You guide them naturally without it ever feeling forced.
Section 3. Navigating friction and time. Look, no matter how perfectly you anchored or how beautifully you presented your menu of options, you are gonna hit pushback. And that's okay. Friction isn't failure. It's honestly just the next step in the dance. The absolute best tool you have here isn't a better argument, it's the clock. You must use time as your advantage. Notice how this maps out. A month out, your job is simply to stay patient. Just chill, don't rush. But as that deadline approaches, say 1 week out, and especially on deadline day, urgency really builds. It's kind of like an oven timer. You can't force a cake to bake faster by yelling at it, but when that timer is about to go off, everybody rushes to the kitchen. Use time strategically to create structural pressure. When the other side is under deadline pressure, they'll almost always concede more just to get the deal done. So remember, when it's your move, take a breath and stay patient.
Section 4. Uncovering true motivations. So what happens when that oven timer is ticking down and the other side just completely digs their heels in?
Well, it usually means you're arguing about the wrong thing. People's positions are almost always surface level. It's time to play detective and dig into motivations. Think of this exactly like peeling an onion. The outer layer might be a supplier aggressively demanding a 15% price increase. If you just sit there and fight about the 15%, you're both going to end up crying. But if you peel back the layers to find their deeper interests and real motivations, you might discover they only need that 15% because their own shipping costs have absolutely skyrocketed. The price increase is just the surface position. Surviving those shipping costs is the actual motivation.
To successfully peel that onion, you literally just need to ask one simple, non-threatening question. Why is that important to you? And then, and honestly, this is the hard part for a lot of us, you actually have to listen carefully to the answer. By finding out why they need something, you open the door to incredibly creative solutions. Let's go back to our supplier example. Maybe you offer to take over the shipping logistics yourself using your massive company's discounted freight rates, which allows them to keep the original unit price. Boom! You solve their underlying fear without yielding a single inch on your surface price. Mutual success.
Section 5. Winning the long game. All right, you've navigated the friction, you've solved the underlying problems, and the deal is basically ready to be signed. How do you wrap it up? You think beyond the deal. This right here is the ultimate hallmark of a CEO mindset. You have to focus on long-term value, build trust and true partnership, and actively highlight shared future growth. A negotiation isn't a single tennis match where you utterly crush your opponent and then go home. It's way more like drafting a star player for a multi-year championship run. The most successful negotiations are always the ones that leave the door wide open for the next opportunity. If you leave the other side feeling completely depleted and defeated, there's no way they'll ever want to do business with you again. So highlight how this current agreement is just stepping stone number 1 to a highly profitable shared future.
Section 6. Summary and next steps.
Just to make absolutely sure you can recall this when you're actually sitting at the table, here is your complete playbook. The 7 CEO tactics to master. 1. Set the anchor first to totally frame the room. 2. Present options to give them the illusion of control. 3. Think beyond the deal for those long-term partnerships. 4. Clarify priorities early on to stop wasting time. 5. Use time and deadlines to organically create urgency. 6. Control the agenda so you aren't driving in circles. And finally, 7. Dig into motivations to solve the real problems hiding right beneath the surface. Seriously, print this out, memorize it, and run it step by step.
Ultimately, mastering these tactics isn't just about saving a few bucks on a contract. It's about elevating your entire profile as a strategic leader. The absolute best leaders out there are constant learners who study the hidden mechanics of human interaction and business value. If you want to keep sharpening that edge and transforming complex strategies into actionable leadership growth, I highly encourage you to take the very next step right now. Search for and subscribe to AI Product Management Playbook by Deepak Dio on LinkedIn. Remember, the best time to build your strategic playbook was yesterday. The second best time is right now. Go make your next deal your absolute best one yet.